And we will try to screw it up less next time, although we can't possibly screw it up as badly as the city is screwing this up. And welcome to This Week in Worcester podcast. I'm Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. I'm here with Mr. John Edward Keogh. He is a valued, featured, amazing contributor to This Week in Worcester. He's also president of Hollywood Film Group and executive producer for Manny J Media. Hello, Mr. John.
Hi, how are you?
I am okay. And how are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. We have a special guest here.
We do.
This is my shoulder owl.
Oh.
That's all I'm going to say.
I was like, who's here? This is weird. I'm scared. But it's a shoulder owl. How has your week been? Or how was your last week, rather?
It was pretty good. It was a lot of work. We were filming in Boston for the fire stuff on Saturday, and that kind of came together at the last second because we didn't know we were going to get it. And so we went to the Boston Fire Museum and had a pretty good shoot. And then busy doing all the stuff for Dead of Winter, getting all the last kind of minute stuff that needs to be done over the last few weeks. There's a ton of those kind of things happening. I mean, regular, typical John week.
Running about.
Yeah. Running about.
Stretched too thin.
Yeah, you probably, you know what I mean, definitely. But I mean, I feel good. It's the cooler. It's a cool way to try to make a living doing the stuff that we're doing. So I don't. I'm not complaining.
Try is the operative word.
It is. There's some interesting things that are going on in our city, and so see what we can talk about this evening.
Yeah, it's not. If they wouldn't give us stuff to talk about, we wouldn't talk about it. But the city council continues to feed us raw meat, which it's exhausting at this point. Like, just stop. Just stop giving us, just stop giving us stuff to talk about. But you do, always. I mean, in a sense, I guess I should be grateful because we have stuff to talk about, right? But I kind of wish they didn't.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. I mean, I don't, I don't want to be fatalistic, but the more that we do it, the more we cover it, the more it just seems like they don't really care, and they don't see that there's they don't really believe that there's ever going to be a group of people that are going to come together to change it meaningfully. And so
right.
They just are going to do what they're going to do. It doesn't matter what we find out or what we discover, they're just going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it before, it's a country club to them. It's a status symbol. I mean, they don't really do anything, right?
Yeah. And one of the things we're going to cover today is the length of the thing. I just don't think they don't care what we think. They definitely don't care what you and I think about them.
No.
People that read the paper or watch our show. So because of that, there's really nobody. It really doesn't matter. And then of course our colleagues at the more mainstream media, they don't care because they don't think that it's gonna get an audience, because the audience that pays attention to them doesn't care either. So you have that kind of it's like a fatalistic circle a little bit, and I know there's been a lot of um organizers and media people in the city over the years and different politicians and leaders who have left, participating in Worcester politics because of that. They just gave up because they're like, well, since no one cares and the media doesn't care, and the leadership definitely doesn't care, we're just not gonna do anything about it. And I think our first topic today, the snow removal from the major storm last weekend, is super reflective of that issue, because the same people who are complaining about the snow removal, and there was and still is complaining,
Oh
they
yeah.
they voted for the same group of leaders.
Yep.
Who have led to the same results. Um, so it's really hard to listen to them complain, because they keep voting for the same group of people. Um, people want to know about the shoulder owl. This is the shoulder owl. He's my buddy.
It's weird, John. It's a little weird.
It's not weird. It's the cool thing. All the kids are doing it now. They have shoulder companions. I'm telling you,
All of them.
all of them. Yeah,
Not just you.
I saw multiple people with shoulder dragons yesterday. So shoulder dragon was a little bit a little bit expensive for me, so I couldn't get that. But I did get a shoulder owl, and he's a fine fellow. He's got a cape. So he's got a little cape. You know what I mean? He's got a little outfit, little suit and tie on under there. He's a distinguished gentle owl.
So yeah, your owl. Weird. So first thing we had on our list of topics here is snow removal, which I know people are very upset about. I just want to play something real quick from the Committee on Public Works. I will share with our video viewers, but you shall hear it audio-wise.
Concerning the department's performance during the first snowstorm of 2025-2026 winter season. Questions? The only thing I would have on that is just, and we've spoken about it too, is the first storm, not including this one here, is just to make sure that the call is going out soon enough, so we're ahead of it and not behind it. But I am going to take this opportunity to discuss the storm we just went through, and say, really, Commissioner, to all of you, your staff, I think the crew did a fantastic job.
I mean, why do we do this always? Like, it's like committee meetings and the city council and whatever is just like a time to, give tongue baths to city employees, despite and right or wrong. You know what? Like, I mean, it was a ton of snow, and I'm not particularly emotional about their response to it, but there are people that are, and it's just like it's small. It's a small thing, but it is part of a trend of just kind of disregarding, denigrating people's concerns about stuff. Like, oh no, they did a great job. I mean, dude.
And so I'm with you. Like it makes no sense, because I know I doubt very much that Mr. Economy would say that if he lived in some of the neighborhoods that felt they were not treated as fast or equally. There are definitely some questions about what streets, what neighborhoods, where the equipment starts, how often there's a rotation to those neighborhoods, those streets. There's definitely still those open questions, something that people have expressed over the years, but because we haven't had a really bad storm, I don't know, we haven't had a real bit. This is probably the worst storm in 6 or 7 years. Well, 2019 was Snowmageddon, right? That was before COVID. So that was the last like really big multiple feet kind of storm. And I mean, people in District 4 have complained for years that they are treated not the same as the rest of the city. And if you go to District 4 right now, today, there are side streets that still have yet to have had a treatment. They've been plowed. Most streets have been plowed. But many of the reasons why those were plowed were community people that got involved, neighbors that decided to help each other out. There's some neighborhoods that have just given up entirely, and they just do it themselves. So there's that, and also the city council and the city manager, they always do the same thing: is they blame people. They always blame the citizens, and they say, "Oh, people are putting snow into the street." Well, first of all, it's 2 feet of snow. Where are they gonna put it? One. One is the first thing, is at some point that snow has to go somewhere, right? And so they don't say anything about, like, so the reason I bring that up is that, like, I live on Irving Street, right? And so there's a municipal building, the Durkin administration building for the school department is right above where I live, right? It's a giant municipal property, pretty big, and there's a long stretch of street. So of course, when you plow a long stretch of street, there's no outlets for the snow to go, right? And the street that comes across Chatham Street, you can't push the snow up the hill, so it comes down Irving Street. And when they're coming down, Irving Street is a main artery, so both sides are banned during the storm, right? So you can't have any cars. And so they push the snow down from the administration building in front of my neighbors, the building that I live in, and then our next neighbors. So they push the snow down. And of course, that naturally goes into our driveways, naturally, of all 3 of the apartment buildings. So who's responsible for that? Now, that's during the storm. Now, I'm not saying that it's on purpose. It's, of course, natural because they're going downhill. There's nothing they can do about it. They have to push the snow somewhere. And of course, the snow is eventually going to end up on Chandler Street because at the bottom of the hill is Chandler Street, right? So then the big plow pushes it out. Then the main plows and the state plows come through on Chandler Street because that's a main artery for the state. So that's a huge thing. So that snow gets pushed out. But some of it gets deposited. And you don't ever hear the city say, "Oh man, those snowplow plow drivers putting that snow into the driveways." You always hear the people shoveling out have put snow into the street. And so there's this weird press media thing that happens because it's amplified on Spectrum, on Hank's show, in the Telegram and Gazette posts, that the people are somehow doing something wrong by living in Worcester. It's like, oh man, you guys really suck for living here, and it's your fault that it snowed, and it's your fault that we were unprepared. This says nothing of the pre-treatment of the salt, which is not completely widespread in the city. A lot of complaints about that, or the brine solution that they used in certain areas, but they weren't completely even trained on that, which Mr. Westerling addressed. He said, "Well, the city council just asked me to do this, and this is the first major storm." So, by the way, I think John Westerling is great. He's addressing the issues that he's facing, which is they don't invest in his department. So how do they expect him to do fancy snow removal? But again, this committee just shows how much of a laughingstock the city council truly is. They really don't do anything. Now, other than kiss each other's butts. Like, you guys did a great job, even though if you look anywhere, there is, I would say 90% of the people of Worcester said this sucks.
Yeah. And there's a video somebody I saw on the social media, somebody driving out of Worcester into West Boylston and on like a back road, and as soon as they crossed into West Boylston, then you could see pavement.
Yeah, of course.
And it's a smaller place, but they have less money and less resources and less plows, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, rates, the city's rate that's paying contractors is a bit below what a lot of surrounding places are paying. So they probably don't have the amount of equipment on the street that they'd like. And I'm not taking anything away from the people that worked for, 18 hours and then took a few hours off and went back to work. Nobody should doubt that they worked hard. I don't exactly know what the issue is. I imagine it's resources, but I don't know. But I mean, And look, it's also, population density is here is much different than West Boylston and surrounding places. Like, that's all true. But, and population density is, obviously more buildings and more driveways and et cetera, right? But yeah, I mean, to just say it was a great job, I mean, it was a couple
So
days later and side streets were still a mess,
yeah, I mean, still today. I mean, even to the I live. So my office is in Elm Park, right? So I'm right at the corner of Elm Park. Russell Street is still covered in snow. You can still not see the street all the way on Russell Street in front of the Greek Orthodox Church. And the today when the church service was taking place, some of the ushers from the Greek Orthodox Church were out there salting the road. That is legitimately happening. And by the way, the parking lot next to the Greek Orthodox Church is one of the staging areas for the city's police department, right? So the Worcester Police Department has multiple units stationed across from Elm Park 24 hours a day, right? So there's an officer there, there's a shift there all the time, and then that's a staging ground for patrols, right? So there's different cruisers and that go from that parking lot, which is next to the St. Spiridon Education Center, which is owned by the church directly across from the street. The driveways in and out of the parking lot that the police department are staged in are covered with snow. So it's not like I'm not saying that like it also affects the ability for the city to stay safe because they just don't have the resources. And by the way, this has nothing to do with the drivers or the guys that are doing the salt work or the people in the snow blowers or the guys driving the little the little snowcat things. Those things are cool. I mean, all those people, for what I could see, were doing hard work. It's not an issue of them. It's an issue of they don't have the resources. They do not have the equipment necessary for the city of this size to be able to truly resolve it in a timely manner. And they have an attitude problem that comes from the city manager's office, and it covers the entirety of city government. And it's, what do you want us to do? It's Worcester. We have to deal with it. And the problem with that is that we now have TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and the internet. The internet was invented. I don't know if anybody knew that. And so I can watch a video of Canada, who has, of Toronto, which has, probably 7 or 8 2-foot snowstorms a year, and I can watch them remove the snow into some melty thing that they have. They have some kind of truck up there that melts the snow as it's put into the truck, and then it's redistributed as hot salty water onto the street. And so they have an amazing system up there. Of course they need to, because obviously they get more snow than we do, and I get that. So the thing is, and this comes down to almost everything in life, Tom. Results of municipal actions are policy results that were decided by investment. And the investment is our tax dollars. And so what the two things that are complained about most in the city of Worcester are A, snow removal every year, and B, potholes. Those are the two most complained about things in the city of Worcester, and they always have. And they've never been solved because the city of Worcester, and this is a Eric Batista thing, this is an Ed Augustus thing, this is a Michael Bryan thing, this is a Joe Petty thing, this is a Tim Murray thing, this is a Connie Luke's thing, this is an everybody thing. They don't care enough to invest in the DPW to change this. They're okay with us complaining about it. They don't think it affects their jobs and that you will vote in relation to this, so they just let it happen. And they do the kind of best they can. They ended up with a pretty good administrator in John Westerling. Every driver I've talked to likes this guy, except for the really old Worcester municipal workers who have been around for 30 years. And that's a good sign if those guys don't like you. I'm just saying, and I know I'm gonna get phone calls for that, right? But listen, a lot of the old time guys, dude, you guys suck, and you just have this like real attitude about your jobs and how it should be guaranteed and all this other stuff, and you should never be fired, despite sleeping in your trucks and all kinds of stuff that you guys do. But anyways, that doesn't matter. The point is that it's a decision. It's a policy decision, and because they don't think there's any political consequences from it, I don't think it's ever going to change until you get new leadership in place. What do you think?
Yeah, but no, probably not. I don't see that they're a forthcoming, major financial commitment to DPW. So, it is what it is.
So Adam makes a good point. Yeah. So the Guardian, so I guess what's considered the mainstream media in Worcester, and the Guardian is considered part of that group, whether you agree with that or not. They leave out some of those things. I agree with you that there was. So I heard from some drivers that were told there was no overtime, and then I heard from other people, and it was posted on different political spots here in the city of Worcester that some people were forced overtime. But after Tuesday, once the city was back open again in their minds, that pressure to fix it stopped. Right. So whether it was overtime or not, it was back to normal operations. They had a massive failure in leadership by sending kids to school on Wednesday and Thursday. That was a just openly, I'm sorry to say this, idiotic decision by whoever made it. And there's no way it was one person, so I'm not going to blame the superintendent. It was definitely a committee-based decision. But with the Arctic blasts that started on Thursday, those kids never should have been on school buses. Now, there's a legitimate argument now because parents, Tom, might say, hey, but you can't ask me to miss work for a whole week too, because now my kids are at home. That's definitely a concern for parents. But the Worcester way is to wait until it all melts. It totally is. It totally is that way. But when you saw like, well, here's an interesting character who just showed up in our chat, Mr. Victor Cruz. If anybody came out of the snowstorm with a better reputation than they went into it, it is Mr. Victor Cruz, because he was saving people left and right because the city can't get out of its own way. So Victor probably made a little bit of money. Hey Vic, can I borrow some money, dude? I want to. I bet he's doing all right. Give me a loan, Victor. I'll pay you back at a high interest rate. What the point of it is that is they just don't have the willingness to really truly do what it needs to be done to make this a policy priority. It's just absolutely Victor's gonna open a bank. It's gonna be doing. So well, we got some interesting people on Twitch and on Twitter now following us. Anyways, those things I find to be interesting, and I think again, when do you think? How about this, Tom? I have a great question for you. You've been following Worcester politics for a long time. Do you think that there's any room in Worcester politics for someone to run just on this? Right? Like someone who just says, I'm going to fix all the potholes and I'm going to fix the snow removal, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything else, but I'm going to fix that.
Well, but somebody that runs can't fix that.
Right. Well, because you would need real charter, because that person would need real authority. And the city council does nothing and has given away all its authority anyways. So it has no real ability to do anything. But no, I do think about that. Could someone truly stand, like a single issue candidate, and it was just going to be municipal operations? Because you can see, at least with John Westerling as an administrator, that there's been a change in the quality of his ability to deliver answers, right? So when he gets up there, he's able to answer the foolish questions from the city councilors, and it's almost always foolishness that he's asked, and then he's like, well, that cost X millions of dollars, and you didn't give me that, so I can't do that.
Right. It's essentially all his answers. Yeah,
that's all his answers. He's like speaking of Tony Economou, he had asked a question 2 weeks ago about pavement emulsion, right? So that's that heating elements and heating things underneath the cement and the concrete, right? And in some cities they're doing that, and in some rich people have driveways where they have that kind of stuff. And then Commissioner Westerling answered that question pretty straightforwardly. That would cost an immense amount of money for the city of Worcester with hundreds and thousands of miles of road, right? to be invested in and put coils all over the roads and just melt the snow away that way. Uh, You think we were under construction now? Can you imagine if they went and coiled all the roads?
Oh, I mean, then I'd have to do that a very, piecemeal way.
No, they have to airlift the city out and redo the whole city and then airlift us all back. But I mean, I'll take a paid vacation to a hotel in Shrewsbury. Let's go.
Yeah, it's again, I'm not like particularly emotional about it. Like, I mean, there was a lot of snow and it is what it is. But certainly there are people that are upset about it. And then, and that's not to pick on Tony. It's something we get all the time. It's the constant just like puffing of, oh, everyone's great.
All right, Sam. Yeah, movie theater. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll build it, buddy. I got you. The thing with Tony is that he's in the seat now, right? So every time he says something now, he has to understand that that's something that is fodder for conversation. And he said it in the committee hearing, and he turned to him and says, "You guys did a great job." And so I think if you take the statement in context and say, did the employees that they have with the resources that they have do the best that they could? Is that what he's referring to? Is that the standard for good job? Because if it is, I would question even that, because I don't know that even the drivers believe that. Because again, we saw, like Adam said, there was a lack of resources available on Tuesday, right? So once the emergency was over, right, it became less important, and so then that went away. So was that the driver's fault? No, but whose fault is that? Other thing too is in the city of Worcester, man, there is a constant, steady stream of leaks from people inside the city, and then there's the secondary, attack against those leaks all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I had one person whose husband works in DPW who on Worcester Political Dialogue said he's gonna suffer because she put a comment saying he was forced into overtime. And I'm like, that's just wild. And then, but that's really, I mean, to be honest with you, that's what Eric Batista's legacy is so far in the city of Worcester. He hammers anybody who questions him. Top down, organization inside out. If you question Eric Batista in any capacity, he will come after you in some way with some city administration. He goes after people's jobs outside of the city. He attacks businesses outside. It's wild, but that's his legacy. That's what he's known for doing, is he will make sure that he gets his retribution if you ever question his anything.
He'll send mean tweets that don't make any sense.
Yeah, he'll send some mean tweets at you. He'll make it harder for you to do business in the city if he can influence it. And so that stinks for the city of Worcester, that our supposed leader, who says that he wants the best managed city in America, gets a little retaliation. Sounds retaliatory. It might be. So Victor says that he thinks the city has enough equipment and manpower. And so I would say that there's really a real good conversation is about how they deploy. And I think a perfect example is in District 4. So, what District 4 residents, I'm a District 4 resident, what we have complained about for years is that the city is actually hurting itself by disproportionate placement of manpower and equipment. So there's no doubt that District 1 and District 5 have the equipment rolling the minute it gets to 3 inches in any storm, right? That's the way it is. District 1 and District 5, man, they are, and I don't want to say all of District 5 or all of District 1, but you know what neighborhoods I'm talking about, man. Those neighborhoods, it's almost like the equipment starts on those streets, right? When they start those rotations. District 4, and this is something that makes no sense because Main Street is in the middle of District 4. District 4 often seems to be the last place that the city gets to in every single weather-related emergency, and it's been that way my entire life. And so it's just, that's a fact. So now if you say that, right? They then push back on you and say that's not true. That's not true. But my experience and the experience of everybody I've ever met in District 4, I've yet to meet a person from District 4 that lives and works in District 4 that says anything other than our area is treated last, and then we don't get the same amount of manpower into our area as an emergency goes on. Yet we're disproportionately affected by police patrols. It is what it is. Yeah. I mean, so what Victor's saying, I mean, that's true. I mean, I hear that all the time. I hear that a few of the city councilors had their driveways plowed by city equipment. I hear that every single year. Now, I don't ever have video of that, so I don't know if I want to go and have someone set up a GoPro, before the next major snowstorm outside of some of our city councilors' driveways. I know that I guarantee you I'm going to get a phone call tomorrow. I guarantee this is coming, that someone will call me tomorrow and say, how could you say that, blah, 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 blah. But there's definitely it's interesting that certain police officials, certain administrators, man, those city trucks seem to be right near their houses when the storm starts. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know. So what Victor just said, I find that to be true. I find that to be very, very true that the city, and I think they do it openly. Again, for the folks that watch our show and the folks that talk about our show, they don't think that there's any political repercussions for that. So they openly do corrupt things like that to your face because they just don't care. They don't believe that you'll ever organize and vote them out, ever. And there's no, and this is not, no matter what I say, Tom, someone's gonna complain. So it's not to say that there isn't someone on the city council now, or someone's on the city council now that wouldn't fight for you, but they also are disillusioned, and they don't maybe put as much energy into this because they don't think that you're going to organize on their behalf. So there's a lot of political calculations being made because they just think eventually, as Adam said, they'll just wait for it to melt, and everybody won't be mad anymore.
Yep. Well, I don't know. I don't know about the plowing of certain driveways. I have no idea. But yeah, in general, I mean, look, going into the next issue of the last city council meeting, you can't petition the city council anymore except for parking and traffic and parking issues. They won't say that outright, but that's the reality of it.
Yep.
And they won't change the rules and just say that and just make everything clear. They'll waterboard you through filing a petition and then sending it from the clerk to the solicitor, who are both caught in the middle, really, because they're just acting on the orders they've been given. But yet they had and look, the meeting before the last one was long. It was 3 or 4 hours long. But I mean, they met for 55 minutes last Tuesday.
Yeah,
it's the third meeting of the year. Third meeting of this council. You'd figure there'd be so much to do. All this quote important city business end quote. Back
to business, regularly scheduled programming, right? Aren't they doing their thing?
Well, I mean, but there's the quorum, so everything's perfect.
Everything's perfect. Quorum, yeah, happy.
Decorum is there's less resistance to the majority. So,
yeah, that's exactly that. Say that again, Tom. Say that again. That is a decorum means what exactly? Say that again.
Oh, resistance to the majority.
Right. So exactly. So, and I know Councilor Rosen now watches our show. I know he does. He does. And he loves to go on and on about how nice everybody is to each other now and how wonderful it is. And that's because there's no real resistance. And if there was resistance, it's limited and they'll never have a majority. Because right now there's 8 votes. So it's a super majority no matter what. And so they cannot stop anything from happening. And so there's really no resistance. This council is, for all intents and purposes, is the uniparty, one group control. And there's no political balance of any kind in the city of Worcester, at least for the next 2 years, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and my opinions on that are quite well repeated.
Detailed, right?
Yeah, I mean, what is it? What's really the ideological disposition of this council? Opposition to checks and balances, opposition to separation of powers, opposition to the First Amendment, and not exactly a stellar commitment to equal protection of the law. So
We'll take it to another statement. The position of the city council is they're right and everybody else is wrong, and they'll do
right,
anything within their power to limit anybody's ability to question whether or not they're right,
right,
even with evidence that to your eyes and to your ears sound and look just like evidence that to the contrary. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They are right no matter what. And
but
if you
that
say
doesn't matter. Listen, that's not what was put in the report from the city manager and spoon fed to them,
that's
which is
right,
the only truth that ever exists.
they're always right. They're always right no matter what. They are right. And by the way, real quick sidetrack. This week the Worcester Regional Research Bureau's report on the MBTA decision to change the lines in and out of Worcester to Boston is on there. It's probably going to be filed, but that report came from, if you remember, late 2024. In late 2024, the MBTA changed the routes going back and forth to the city of Worcester. It took one away. It changed the timing of a couple others, and so then both Eric Batista and Joe Petty got upset about it in the public, and it went into the newspapers. They had a fight, and so then the city council unanimously asked the city manager for a report on the importance of this line, like who does it serve, and of course the city manager, because his office doesn't have the capacity to do any real research at all, even though he's supposed to, asked the Worcester Regional Research Bureau, which by the way apparently did an incredible job on this train report, right? Because I didn't hear anybody complaining about this thing must have been spot on, not referring to any other reports that they did, Tom, just this train, just about the trains, just talking about trains only, trains only. But the thing about that report is that it turns out that maybe the city manager and the mayor's complaints weren't right, because they looked at the patterns of attendance on those particular lines, and it turns out that those lines just weren't used as much. And so, should the state's trains, right, line serve routes and serve stops that don't pay? That's a big question, right? So that's
Right.
the thing. Now, here's the thing about the state of Massachusetts. They also are always right. Right? So what happened here is you have a city that says it's always right that ran up against a state that is bigger and more powerful, has more money, and is also always right. And the ones always right outweighed the others always right. That's what happened. That's what happened, dude.
None of us know anything.
None of us know anything. We're stupid. We're too dumb. We're too dumb to do it. Too dumb to do it. By the way, there's several Worcester groups that have done other studies, not just the Worcester Regional Research Bureau, on trains and on the patterns of the commuter rail and when it should be available and when it shouldn't be available. And of course, the big fight has always been for rapid trains, both to the city of Boston and to New York, right? That's always been kind of like a big argument. And then to reopen the P&W Railroad along 146 and create a true, commuter rail hub, which is something that, well, I think that I forget which Renaissance that was a part of, but it was like 2 or 3 Renaissances ago. I don't know if Tim Murray was a part of that one. Maybe it might have been a Murray Renaissance, but one of the Renaissances ago, remember, if you guys all remember, that Worcester was going to be the regional super hub. Remember the term super hub for commuter rails in the New England region, and we were going to have a direct shot from Manchester down, right? Or maybe it was not Manchester, maybe it was Portsmouth. I forget. New Hampshire down, Boston over, New York over, Albany diagonal, Providence direct, Hartford direct, right? So you were going to have all those kind of come to one spot in Worcester, and it was going to be like a regional hub. And then the state said, "No, we're not doing that." If you remember, I do think I can't. I don't want to say I'm 100% right. I'm just part right about this. So I don't know the exact dates, but I do remember before Tim Murray became lieutenant governor, when he was running for governor, because remember he became lieutenant governor, but he also had run for governor. Like he was one of the candidates, and then he eventually hopped on with Duvall. I think part of his campaign was the Worcester being like a regional commuter rail super hub or whatever it was. And I don't know if he coined the term, so I don't want to blame him for it. I don't want him to call me or text me and tell me I didn't say that. It wasn't me. But somebody came up with the term super hub. So you guys can go on your internet, search and figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. I don't. At this rate, I don't anticipate a super hub of anything being in Worcester. But
by the way, if there was a 200-mile-per-hour train to Boston, I would take that all day. Because what would that 200-mile-per-hour train to Boston would take? What, 15 minutes? How long would that take?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
It would be like 15, because it's only 65, 70 miles. It's not a long ride to Boston. It's just that we have the worst traffic system in the universe. And so it takes an hour to get to a city that should only take, 20 minutes. But, that it is what I drove to Boston on Saturday morning, by the way. And oh my goodness, just missed the oncoming nonsense of traffic. And it still took over an hour from Worcester at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was just like,
really?
Oh man, on a Saturday. Yeah. On a Saturday. Just this, because the thing is that once you get to Newton, right, the BC's campuses, that Newton exit on the Mass Pike is still the worst exit, other than there's other exits in the state that are competitive, but that might be the worst traffic exit in the history of the universe. It might be. It might be legitimately in the history of the universe the worst traffic one. Maybe not. Maybe the one in Star Wars where they the Kessel Run. Maybe the Kessel Run is worse than that exit.
Yeah, and it always bleeds of course, it bleeds quickly onto, Mass Pike proper and then backs everything up.
It backs up the whole city, and then it backs up 93, and then, so one person getting mad at another person on that ramp can turn the whole state upside down. That's realistic.
Yeah, pretty close to it. Yep. Yeah. So, not a lot of exciting on the agenda last week, and then, 55 minutes and we're gone. And as you brought up, and I didn't think much of it when you first brought it up, but I mean, it's now a growing trend of, scheduling committee meetings at 5 o'clock on Tuesday before the 6:30 council meeting. I mean, I guess as long as you come to work once a week, that's coming to work. Because remember, coming to work was a big thing last year.
Yeah.
And now, but yet people don't want to come to City Hall twice a week. They want to have their committee meeting before the regular meeting that is too long and needs to be shortened.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I would say, I mean, I've talked about it. Obviously, the Public Safety Committee hasn't had a meeting yet, but you and I have talked many times before. It doesn't make sense for something so important as the public safety meeting to only have 90 minutes once a month. And so it just doesn't seem to be, even if you don't agree with what the Public Safety Committee should cover, you would think they deserve more than 90 minutes because people might make it later or whatever. A lot of people get out of work after 5. I mean, traditional schedules 9 to 5 does not exist there's very few businesses of any kind that have a traditional 9 to 5 schedule anymore. To be honest with you, if you have a 9 to 5 schedule, you are a very privileged person. Like you're doing good for yourself, because most people, I mean, it's either 7 to 3 or 8 to 4, or they're working later, or,
I mean, even if you're on, in a salary gig that's supposed to be 9 to 5, you're there later than that anyway.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I listen, I'm an independent, I'm a small business owner, and I'm working sometimes 16, 20 hours. I mean, Saturday was a 20-hour day. It wrecked me. We worked the whole day, and then Leanne and I went to that the Tales of the Dying Daylight, which was like a indoor Ren fair at Mechanics Hall, where we had a table, and we tabled at that event. And so by the time I got back to the office and I dumped all the stuff out, and then I got home. I've been 20 hours in. I was always the next day. Like today has been basically a day trying to recover from that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
can't. You don't get a chance to stop. So, and I'm not complaining, by the way, because I chose to be a small business owner, and I love it. And so it's not that I would rather do this than answer to someone all day long. I don't ever want to work for somebody else ever again. I
Yeah.
barely
I
like.
do not play nice with others.
Yeah, I barely like working with people I like. You know what I mean? Like, so like I work with Tom, I like him, and he knows I'm a grumpy dude when I can be, and it's only because I like Tom. Other newspapers people have said, how come you don't get a job with the Telegram and Gazette? Because I would rip the editor's face off every day yelling at him because I would disagree with decisions that they make. With Tom, we both mostly are angry at the same stuff, so we can have a conversation.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look, in most places, I don't know how it works anywhere, specifically, but in generally, most places, your stuff goes to the editor, and they do what they do, and then it's published before you ever see it again.
Yeah,
And that's just, not how I operate. I always, anything
Yeah,
of substance that I change, I run it by whoever wrote it.
yeah. I know. I like the I like how it works doing that. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the 9 to 5 thing, and just we're going to schedule this meeting at 5 o'clock. You've basically eliminated anybody who's a parent in the city of Worcester by
Yeah.
scheduling at 5 o'clock, because everybody who's a parent, obviously schools get out starting at any time. I think maybe some of the schools let out at 2:20 is like the earliest ones. Hey, Poppy. Worcester Majors CEO over there, joining the show.
Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I lived that life. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but Poppy, they have a great show. They do a new show on Wednesdays on Facebook and on YouTube. 508 Live. You guys check out that podcast. It's on Wednesdays. Manny broadcasts it. It's Manny, Poppy. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna forget the Poppy. Put all 4 people in the chat so that people know the hosts of the show. Fred, listen, I don't want to stop and ruin this for the people who are audio only, but I must address this. Fred, I will never allow you to become mayor. I just want you to understand that. With the last breath of my life, if you ever Ron Burgess and then Millstone. Or the other 2 hosts, and there's a great show. Check out 508 Live. And it's a very different Worcester show, but it's a great show. 4 guys, all from Worcester, great dudes, all parents, all great guys. Just go check out that show. It's fun, and I like it, and I'm glad that they're doing it again. They used to do it before, but now they've all come back together, and I think it's a great show. And yes, I'm biased because Manny and Poppy are my friends. Yes. I don't care what you say, but I digress. Fred, you will never become mayor if I'm alive. Never, ever, ever. All right, sorry. I will. I know we need to move on.
I just little inside thing for Poppy. Are you enjoying Joe's daily email? That's all I have to say. Of marketing advice from the 1930s.
I think Poppy's done a great job trying to reestablish the Majors as a brand. He's worked really hard, and he's had to overcome tremendous hurdles with the city. And I think that okay, with my company, with Hollywood, a lot of you who follow our show, and Tom, you know how many obstacles I've had to overcome to get Hollywood to where it is even now. And there's still room to grow, and there's a long run ahead of it. But there were people in city leadership that didn't even want me to get to this point, and it's a major accomplishment. And reason I said major accomplishment is because there will be a day when the Majors are doing well, and it's because of that kid and how hard he works. And I cannot wait to be there for that day. So I believe that it'll come. But it's just that's the way our city works. They do not want anybody who's not in the in crowd to be successful, and so that stinks. I do appreciate the that there are some people out there that are trying to spotlight. I don't know if you saw Worcester Magazine's Worcester Woman to Watch, where Leanne got in there. But Victor Infante, that's a great series that they do there that showcases, women in the city of Worcester, some of whom, again, they just, if you go listen to it, it's all barriers put by the city of Worcester. Just like, dude, why do they have to fight so hard to do stuff that they're passionate and good at? Like, let folks just do what they want to do. You know what I mean? If they're not hurting somebody, if they're trying to achieve something, support them, man. Support. So support local businesses and support local shows. You're going to get a lot more information and fun out of them than you're going to get from the same old, same old.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And I mean, what other show has a shoulder owl? I mean, come on. I mean, where else would you see this? And he's a distinguished, gentle owl. So you guys know my nerd status just continues to increase. I'm getting credibility by the second right now.
And yeah, I mean, I lived that ABA life, and let me tell you, it is a difficult road to toe. So I wish you luck.
Yeah.
Any success will certainly be because of you, because God knows you'll get no support. And how could you get support? There's 875 teams in the league.
But I'll tell you what, there will be support from This Week in Worcester, because we love to cover the up and coming local sports team. So when there's a story that needs to be written, Poppy, you reach out to us. We got you.
Yeah, I could complain about ABA stuff for hours that nobody would care about. Well, Poppy might care, but he'd be the only person on earth. Also on this coming Tuesday at the City Council meeting, topic that I am extraordinarily passionate about is mentioned. I'm going to pull up the order here. It is from Council Rosen, 9K, request the Committee on Municipal Ops to hold a public hearing to determine the feasibility and advisability of the City Council initiating and/or supporting efforts to review the current modified Plan E charter implemented in 1987 and amended in 2022. 2022 was just the school committee edit, so it's really otherwise not been modified, changed, or anything of the sort since 1987. There you go.
Throw that on the screen there for our video only watchers, because I think that I only got that in Facebook's chat.
Yeah. It's that won't happen. I mean, the order will probably go to committee and they'll talk about it, but look, they don't. Back to the theme of these people are consumed with re-election and nothing else. They don't want anything. They don't want that, because the obvious thing to do is reduce the number of at-large councilors, because it's ridiculous to have more at-large councilors in districts, just ridiculous. And unless you're gonna have them all at large, and that wouldn't work here. Like, I mean, the place that does that is the only place that I know of, at least offhand, is Cambridge, and Cambridge is the size of a postage stamp. It's just the population density is very high, right? So all councilors there are at large, so at large councilors don't want to see that, right? If you're finishing 4, 5, or 6 in the at large race, you don't want to see, obviously, the number of at-large councils reduced, because that probably risks you being eliminated.
Right.
So, this is, I mean, I tried this. I went down this road. I, tried to do the rounds with councilors and say, let's do an appointed committee to review this thing, and let's have a some sort of fair shake on how that committee might be made up. And they were private conversations, so I won't say who, but the two people that I talked to were not interested at all in that.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe that was not 2 years ago, but over a year ago. So, maybe their position has changed, but I don't expect it to change. And
Yeah,
all I'll say is, there'll be, and I know I keep saying this, and I'm really not stringing you along. There'll be news soon on that front.
Yeah. So I appreciate Gary did say he would put it on the agenda at some point, and so he did. So I guess you got to give him credit for that. But just reading what he put up there, it reads to me like the safe kind of approach, on a feasibility. And there's a key word there, advisability of the city council initiating and our supporting efforts to review the charter, right? So again, if it goes to committee and if it comes out of committee, I don't think that there's votes. First of all, to do this, to open this conversation under the current charter, they need 8 votes, right? So I don't believe that those 8 votes exist. That's my personal feeling, and I think that they will. I don't even know that this will ever get voted on under the current situation that we have, because I believe that they would just let it advance to the floor. It would get filed, and that would be the end of it, right? And I think there's 6 votes to file, and I also think, and this is my opinion, Tom, and I'm saying it out loud, but it's my opinion. It's slightly informed opinion, but it's my opinion that it'll be a 6-5 vote, and that Mayor Petty will vote with the people who say not to file, so he can save face, and then Gary Rosen as well. So you'll get 5 votes, and so you can figure out the other 3. And I think it's preordained. There's going to be some lip service dedicated to this conversation. And they're going to say, well, we tried to do it and we had the committee meetings and we had a public hearing and it just wasn't workable. And they have already determined that they will not adhere to this. And that's because, Tom, the current city charter allows them to maintain power exactly how it is, the same group always, and has worked for 40 years to do that. They will never, and I don't think they'll give up power easily. In the history of the world, it is very few people that voluntarily abdicate power. It's very, very few. And so you have to really question whether or not that will happen. By the way, for the history buffs of the universe who would love to cite to me Cincinnatus, the Roman guy, and then George Washington as people who voluntarily gave up power. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. And I just there's so many things that I could go into that. It's just the only person maybe in modern history that ever really kind of gave up some power was Pope Benedict. And it was only because I think Pope Benedict was going to be named in the priest abuse scandal, and that's why he resigned as Pope. That's my opinion, also informed slightly, and that's why he was able to step down. But it wasn't. There's never really been a true abdication of authority, really, in human history, where someone truly says, "You know what? I'm going to give this up freely, and I'm not going to get kicked out the door." Normally, you have to get kicked out for you to give up power, right? And so I do think that.
I mean, I'm thinking about the Washington example. I mean, he said from the beginning he would only run for 1 term, and then he did that. Is that giving up power, or is that going, is that retiring? But I mean, that's probably previously, he had said he would only run for 1 term anyway. And at that point, I mean, it was, there was no election. Like, he was just, you're the guy. And I think for that reason, he just moved aside. So I mean, I guess it's how do you really want to define surrendering power? I think it's a little more common than you're saying, but it's not very common.
I also think that he was dying, and and there was a lot of reasons why that he was dying, including having teeth in his mouth that were from some of his own slaves. So that might have been a problem, leading to infections in his life. So I mean, and it is what it is. When we talk about history, we need to talk about like the full story. The guy was not as much of a hero as everybody likes to make him out to be. I just think that there was reasons behind him not going forward. There was an opportunity for him to be King George I, no doubt.
Oh yeah,
no
which
doubt.
Which he very much didn't want.
True.
Yeah.
By the way,
So I mean, that's certainly commendable.
the same founding fathers, the constitutionalists love to, sing praises to about establishing freedom and all that other stuff. They would have crowned him king in a heartbeat. All of them.
Eh,
All of them, all of them, except for maybe Hamilton. Maybe Hamilton. I'll give Hamilton the chance to be the guy that would have voted no. But it would have been a ton of those same guys who signed that document who would have signed up for King George the First. And just like the constitutionalists that we have now will abdicate first, Bill of Rights amendments in a heartbeat.
oh yeah.
In a heartbeat to stay in power. They give up your rights all the time. They don't care about you.
And yeah, I mean, so I don't know. I think that's also a little unfair. So look, founders had, they knew a lot of stuff about government, and they were terrible on other things. Basically, especially human rights. Well documented that they had significant deliberations about what to do with slavery, and decided not to do anything. And is that a practice? Would the revolution, would everything have happened if they were fighting that battle too? Maybe not. That was the kind of the calculation they made. But I mean, they were true believers, and they really hated the crown. I think that the idea that they kind of would have made him president for life was a product of the war. I mean, he was the biggest celebrity that the continent had ever known by then.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But when they did all the work on the Constitution, well, not so much, right? So whatever.
Yeah, Tom won't be on your staff either, Fred. Let me tell you that. I can guarantee you that. Fred will never be mayor, ever, 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 ever. That will be the day that I lead revolution. Just like I said, if Maureen runs for mayor, I will immediately announce a run against Maureen. If Fred runs for mayor, I will announce a revolution, an armed resistance to Fred being mayor. That's the end of everything right there. I will lead a militia. I will start my own militia to stop that from happening. I'm dead serious too.
Well, I mean, now you won't have right-wing support though, because they're now anti-Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's so my point. So, not to go into the weeds on this, because I think it's a great topic, and I love talking about history, and I do think that there's nuance to what I'm saying. It's hard to cut and say this 100% or that 100%. I think that certain folks would lean in one direction versus the other, even back then, right? But what I would say is that it's amazing to watch the people who fought for Second Amendment rights, and were like, dude, kids in this country, children in high schools and in elementary schools around our nation since 1998, and it was not a normal thing. It was not a regular thing. It became a regular thing. I don't care what anybody says. I lived through the history. We all know it's true. From 1998 on, from the massacre at Columbine High School, it has become a cultural establishment of the United States of America that we allow our children to be murdered in their classrooms on a regular basis. That is a fact of life in our country. I don't care what you say. The same people who say that they will never have common sense gun reform, despite children dying. This is Donald J. Trump 101. Went on the news and said you can't bring guns to a protest now because someone on the other side did it. Now, I saw the Stop the Steal rallies, right? I watched all those rallies, and damn, Tom, I could have sworn I saw people with magazines, with M16s, with AK-47s, dudes rolling up in tanks. First of all, how'd you even get a tank? Where'd you get that tank from? Apparently in Oklahoma, you can have a tank just hanging out in your backyard. But cool, whatever. Just to see them just dismiss it. The second in charge, Todd Blanche, he's the second in charge of the Department of Justice, saying that you can't do this. Attorney generals, multiple Republican attorney generals, saying that that's not okay. That's what's just wild. Same people, they will get that, and that just goes to show you they said the Second Amendment was a right and was important because they think you vote on that. And so because you vote on that, they will pander to your right. But as soon as they think that it's not important for them, this is their real opinion, it comes out in a second. So your Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights is a flimsy piece of paper that means nothing without actual concrete support. And it just boggles your mind to watch it just waffle in the wind. Now, of course, they've been crushing First Amendment rights for years. They've been smashing those. The 14th Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, they get rid of that stuff all the time. But it was wild to see the Second Amendment just go up in smoke the last 10 days. That was fun watching that go down. How do you guys feel about that, Republicans?
Oh, they love it. No, that's fine because he's a terrorist because he showed up at a protest and helped a woman get up. So he deserved it.
And watching people listen, I don't care what people say, man. I no more do I care. I just at this point I've completely checked out from having rational conversations. But if you tell me that kicking a taillight means that you deserve to be murdered 10 days later,
yeah,
that's what I watch people rationalize this, including people that get in our chat. They're saying that kicking a taillight means you can be murdered, hands and knees on the ground, face down, without a weapon. You can be shot 9 times in your head and back. That's what they're saying is the result of kicking a taillight. And by the way, now here's the crazy part, Tom. If kicking that taillight was so bad, why didn't they arrest him that day?
No, they realized 10 days later that they were afraid when he kicked the tail light. They were afraid for their life. So
right. So or Tom, maybe there's more to that video that we haven't seen. Maybe some of the officers did some stuff to him before that. All we see is clips, man. All we see is.
I don't really care what happened 10 days later, 10 days earlier. I will say though.
It doesn't matter.
I will say to this subject a bit. While I'm not opposed to the mayor putting out. Council King also put out a statement, which I think was kind of expected from him. But I was a bit surprised, and a bit pleasantly surprised, that the mayor put out a statement about the murder of that young man, who was a nurse at the VA. What a terrible guy.
Yeah, bad
guy. But that he said that young man's name in his statement, but that when it was on the city council agenda that they were going to go into an executive session to talk about the settlement that ended up happening with Natalie Cosenza, he couldn't even say his name because he didn't know who he was.
Right.
And while he certainly wasn't murdered, the city stole 16 years of that man's life, and they don't care. They won't ever talk about that because that'll hurt somebody's feelings at the police department. And that's what we're here for, is to not hurt anybody's feelings at the police department. But so it's very. While I am somewhat, I was a little surprised, and I think it's good that he, I don't have a problem with local officials commenting on issues that happen in our world. Nor do I have a problem with the city council issuing resolutions about issues in our world. They have a problem with that because so much city business. That's 55 minutes.
Only if it's in the opposition that the resolution.
Right. Yeah. If it's
you just can't get away with it right now, Tom. But give them like a year, they'll get a resolution out there that has nothing to do with the city.
Right. Well, they already do. They have because now his position is that councils can bring anything they want. Unless he's changed it again. I don't know. No, just jam the rules through. Don't even send them to committee. Don't get rules that are actually applied. Now they're bringing up rules that was last applied 30 years ago. It's ridiculous. So at one hand, it's good that he mentioned it and expressed the view of it. But on the other hand, it's also very easy to talk about things that are, a couple thousand miles away.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be more important for him to address things in Worcester that have happened.
Yeah. I don't mind him making a statement about it. I appreciate it. I think, I would just say that, there's been some direct connections between what happened at Eureka Street and then what we're seeing in Minnesota. And at the time, at the time of Eureka Street, we were on our show and we said, this could lead eventually to somebody dying. And of course, there's a person in our chat right now who said that'll never happen and never will someone die and blah, blah, blah. And this funny, the last comment that's up on Facebook right there that we have before Adam just did there, said that guns don't kill, people who have guns kill. You're right. In this case, Border Patrol personnel murdered a person in cold blood, and then an ICE agent had murdered a woman in cold blood just about a week before that. And of course, police officers around our country have murdered people using guns repeatedly, especially African Americans, for years and years and years. And this is something that is completely ignored. Maura Healey had this. They went to the State House and they put up all the celebration of Maura Healey, and they're going to resist ICE. But again, none of you really truly look at what they say or what they do. They still have an agreement to share information with ICE that's never been stopped, ever. Just so you understand that. All the police departments in the state of Massachusetts and the state of Massachusetts itself share direct data with ICE through Palantir. And I don't want to get into the ridiculousness of that company and what it's being allowed to do with our personal information. It's funny. Edward Snowden, goes and leaks to the press, and we hear all about the mass surveillance. And you thought at the time, like, that'll really show the government. We had someone tell the truth, and they'll stop doing mass surveillance. Oh no. They've gone in mass surveillance at 10 times, 100 times worse than that since then. And you guys are all in databases. I'm in a database. Tom's in a database of some kind. And our names pop up whenever they feel like it, and they track and know all this information. Which Candy Merrill Carlson last session when we were talking about the drones, she rightfully said, if you cared about mass surveillance, you wouldn't have a cell phone, and she's not wrong. She's not wrong. We've as a society we've kind of accepted that, as part and parcel of how we do it. But the fact of the matter is that this precipitous violence was predicted. It was predicted. Eureka Street was just a symptom along the way to a full-blown sickness of lethal force being used. When officers of any agency approach a situation with escalated tension, it always results potentially in harm for citizens, whether you are a citizen who committed a crime or not. But lethal force is only supposed to be applied under reasonable standards. And I'm just using, Chief Saucier's public statement that he uses. There's a case that they like to use that talks about this idea of a reasonable officer's response. And I don't know anyone who can tell me that when someone's on their hands and knees, face down, faced away from me, that putting a gun to the back of their head is reasonable use of force.
That's after he'd been disarmed. And he never drew his weapon.
And he was being held down by multiple of the partners of the officer in question. In fact, he shot so brazenly into the back of this man's head and back that his fellow partner officers had to scatter out of the way. It wasn't just that he killed this man, and then the second guy emptied some bullets into him too, but that he put all of his fellow officers in danger because they were literally engaged with this man, which, I don't believe the Worcester Police Department has something that reckless on their hands, but they definitely tased the dude on his hands and knees, right? And Pastor Rizzuti, right? So someone who was down on the ground, they tased the dude doing the same thing. So imagine, just take the Pastor Rizzuti situation and put a gun in that officer's hands, and you have the same result. Escalated tension of an officer leads to potential physical conflict. It does. In the Rizzuti case, that officer had an attitude that you can hear on his own body camera. He has an attitude with Pastor Rizzuti. He's wrong on every level of the law. He's wrong. And he escalated the situation and then used force and then eventually is going to be found, the city's going to be found liable for that. In the case of this person in Minnesota, an officer escalated. There's multiple times during that it didn't have to turn into what it turned into. multiple times. And every time there was not one of those officers who tried to de-escalate the situation. Not one. It was always an escalation into a more and more use of force. When we talk about accountability standards, that's what we're talking about. No officer should be trained to act like that. None. And if you have that kind of attitude, you should not be in the field. You should not. That's just the way it is. It's just like customer service. You guys ever like have to deal with a bill collector and have like an argument with the bill collector? What happens after you get into an argument with the bill collector? What do you end up having to do? You get they give you a nicer person. They'll always get you to a nicer person. And that person will try to talk you down, right? Because the other person escalated. And very likely that person who escalated isn't going to be dealing with customers, going forward. That's all we're saying, and it does apply to our city because we had a sweeping general election push towards customer service representatives and being nice to our constituents, right, Tom? Isn't that what we're doing now? Decorum, customer service. I saw Jose was out there shoveling some snow. By the way, him shoveling out driveways tells you how bad the city did about snow removal. Because he should not have to be shoveling people's driveways. What the hell? What the hell is that? What is that? Oh my goodness.
I just want to go back to school shootings for a second. Listen, I don't know what you're talking about. The Department of Justice in the Biden administration launched a deep state, vast left-wing conspiracy against the city of Worcester and the Worcester Police Department. They enlisted state and federal judges, and on their way here, they stopped off at Sandy Hook to hire some crisis actors. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, not to get into Alex Jones world, because I don't, it's not. I feel dirty every time I end up dealing with it. But the guy literally has the biggest personal lawsuit settlement in the history of America against him.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really about him. It's, about
it's just about what he said. He was saying all these lies.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean the ridiculous conspiracy of, the Biden conspiracy against Worcester. Like anybody outside of here cares about this place.
Yeah. And I mean, it just, again, just the disinformation that has been spread. I mean, again, it was, blaming an attorney general who, a U.S. attorney who wasn't a U.S. attorney at the time when the investigation started. Just the widespread idea that officers themselves didn't personally, volunteer some of the information that led to the report. That all these things, that the current chief of police didn't completely cooperate and provide a lot of the documents that led to this result. They just refuse to acknowledge reality. It's cognitive dissonance, and it doesn't fit the argument, Tom. So there's no
8 months removed from the 5,000 word response to the report, and still haven't got the written report on what they found was reasonable in the report.
I'm still waiting for the 4 other public hearings that the mayor promised.
Yep. And maybe in one of those we'll actually get to the 2 parts in the second part of the 2 pieces of the second part of the report, which they ignored. They didn't talk about it all, but a brief mention was, which is, failing to hold officers accountable and, its supervisory structures being inadequate. The real, I think, the way to look at the report is, the first section has all of these things that they said, again, hey, had reasonable cause to believe, very low standard of evidence, because it's not, the goal here is not to, see people indicted, is to fix the police department. The takeaway from the report is, here's all these things that we have reasonable cause to believe, and even if you wanted to know about those things, you couldn't, because you don't have the supervisory structures to do it. We never talked about that because there was never any desire to have a real conversation.
Which is realistically, again, more and more, I just feel like just oversight in general would have to be structurally attached to the way that the government is set up, and so we don't have a democracy in the city of Worcester. We don't. The planning government is not set up to have direct accountability for the people with the most authority. So the city manager is protected by a layer of the city council, and they even put his contract negotiations outside of the election cycle. So you can't ever really have a direct reflection on how people might feel about him. There's no real polling organizations in the city of Worcester. Like, for example, the biggest poll that was cited during the last election came from the Chamber of Commerce, and was on Hank Stolz's show every single day about how those are the ones that we have, focused on. I'm just not even going to acknowledge that one. I'm just going to completely
just
acknowledge.
the stupid, just
Stuff.
Alex Jones stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, dude. Oh my goodness. Oh man. With
Like
the stuff
just the lies people are willing to tell.
But listen. With the stuff that was released yesterday, like, dude, really? Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, the thought process it's just that there needs to be an independent finder of facts for all of city government. There needs to be an independent finder of facts for government in general. There always has to be somebody who can say, hey, we can't do this. To be honest with you, I think, Tom, the most important person in America right now is the Senate parliamentarian. The last line of defense that our country has against a full-on creep into just unchecked, unfettered fascism has been Elizabeth Johnson, the Senate parliamentarian who, during the reconciliation process, determines whether or not something is related to taxes or not. That's literally her job. She makes those decisions, and then if it's related to the tax and spend authority of Congress, then they can pass it with just just a simple majority vote, and if not, it needs 2/3. And of course, at this point, our country has nothing that passes with 2/3. And so of course you like Alex Jones, you weirdo. That's why you'll never be mayor. Again, I'll pin that. I'm going to screenshot that comment, and that'll be on your election campaign for mayor, is that you're Alex Jones supporter. So if Fred and Alex Jones sitting in a tree is always, I'll make a t-shirt. That's what my military, my militia, my Worcester militia will carry a T-shirt that says Fred and Alex Jones sitting in a tree. We need a charter review to lead to true accountability, Tom. We need an inspector general that can really check all this stuff. And so in the end, I know that none of the city councilors that are in the majority that exists today have any stomach for real oversight of any kind. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of bored talking about the police at this point, because there's no interest, and the only way that it's ever going to happen is if there's an inspector general installed. I saw the Human Rights Commission voted for to recommend a civilian review board to the city manager. It will never happen. I don't even think the city manager is obligated, under the way he's approached it, to bring that to the city council.
Nope.
So I don't even know if that will ever make it to the agenda. That might be the end of that. That was great. Is good for Guillermo Creamer when he runs for election again. He can say that he led that vote. Blah 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 blah. And they made Father Slavinkus look like he's against oversight and all this other stuff. Weird public release in response that he put out. But it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter, Tom, because a civilian review board is not what we need at this point. We need a true inspector who can be completely independent from the city, whose job is to oversee all municipal operations, documentation, videoing people, inspecting the inspectors. We need all that from an independent group, and that has to be enshrined in the actual charter, the government of our city. And,
well, it doesn't have to be. I mean, they could do it by ordinance, but they won't.
Right. This council will never do that. What I mean is, the only way is if an outside group forces charter reform on the city, and I'm hopeful that you'll have news related to that at some point. That is forced on the city, and the city's forced to do it, and then through that process, you end up with real oversight, and you do it in such a way that this current city council really can't complain because they will be able to say, well, we didn't do that. Someone else did it. Like, that's really how it's going to happen. It has to happen in that way, and that's my only belief that it'll ever happen. I just don't.
In any real charter reform, you'd also have a role that is meaningful for council committees.
Right. Real power. Like, even council committees now, they don't have the ability to subpoena somebody. There's no subpoena authority for city council. The city council has no rules about whether a city councilor has to tell the truth or not. City councilors
that's every legislature, though.
Right, which is just wild. That's something the founding fathers obviously foolishly allowed to creep into the thing that we can just lie on the floor. Just love that protection for legislatures that exists. Just making stuff up is part of American traditional governance. But again, I don't see any of this happen without an outside person doing it. I just don't see this city council will have no stomach for true charter reform. So then it becomes performative. And although I'm grateful that Gary Rosen did something he said he would do during the campaign, you know what? I am going to address this one. Here's the thing: a civilian review board. How is it possible that this city's one of the arguments against the civil review board, Tom, is that somehow that civilian review board would be full of people that are against the police, that are full, like that somehow that's going to be just like they're going to elect me and you and Jen Gaskin to the civilian review board. There's no chance of that. Zero chance of that ever happening. Right now, the city manager has been going on the radio and in the newspaper talking about the chief of police and his own civilian advisory board that he has been recruiting himself.
Yeah, I don't even like, that's fine. He can do that. But if you are, I am going to just absolutely brutalize you if anybody tries to pass that off as fulfilling what people are asking for. It's not.
The city manager said he directly said it. He said it on Tank's show, and he said it in his interview with the Telegram and Gazette, that he believes that is related directly to the complaints of the people.
That's absurd. That is absurd.
It even goes even further, Tom. We don't know any of the names of those people. None.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The whole point is the whole point of anything like this working, whether it's who becomes inspector general or who's on the civilian review board, is the appointment power. Because if you could appoint the people, you can control it. It's really that simple.
That has nothing to do with my point. My point is that the people that the chief of police are going to pick, he's only going to pick people that are yes men and yes women to him. That's a fact. There is no real check against the opinions of Paul Saucier. As good of a job as he's done, he has nobody in there that disagrees with him in any real capacity and pushes back. The only disagreements inside the police department are political deployment-related disagreements about who gets jobs, who gets overtime, and whose kids get into the academy. That's it. There's no real structural disagreements inside there. They all feel the same way. They think all homeless people are evil addicts. They think all poor people are bad. They over-police District 4 because there's too many black and brown people concentrated in one neighborhood. And that is the way it is. And they feel attacked if you ever question them in any way, shape, or form. Back the blue, back the blue, back the blue. They will get upset and angry if you say any officer's bad. And you can even see how far the sickness of this thought process extends if you go watch Sean Hannity's interview with Seth Moulton. By the way, Seth Moulton is, in my opinion, a piece of garbage. One of the most worthless Democrats ever to be elected in the state of Massachusetts.
Facts.
Yet he goes on Sean Hannity, and Sean Hannity says to him, I agree that there's some bad apples in ICE. The bad apples argument, Tom, makes it all the way to the national level. They always want to say it's a bad apple. It doesn't matter. When somebody empowered over the citizens of the United States of America to carry a weapon to enforce the law is empowered to murder those same people they have power over, you are no longer in a free country. You are just no longer in a free country. And if the only way you ever get any accountability is because someone had a cell phone camera, strategically placed and releases that to the media, and somebody in the media publishes it, then you again don't have a free country. You just have a reactionary country, because all it is people saw the video and they go, oh, that video is terrible. That's all that happened. And by the way, Tom, it didn't happen when another officer shot a woman in the face 3 times.
No. The vice president went on TV and said he has absolute immunity, a thing that doesn't exist.
I'm convinced, Tom, that the reason that is because you don't have any camera footage of the bullet actually going into her. In the Alex Preddy case, you can see the gun pointed into the back of his head, and you can see him react physically in the video to being shot, killed, murdered in the street. And people saw that and go, and even Donald Trump himself was like, oh, that doesn't look good. Yeah, no shit. No shit, it doesn't look good. And the same thing can be said for the Renee Good thing. You just don't have a good enough angle to watch her face explode when someone put bullets into it. That's the only difference, Tom. And by the way, let me say this, because I know that there are several leaders in the minority community that follow our show, and I'm grateful that they follow our show because they believe that you and I are on their side. But the facts and the reason is because I'm going to say what I'm going to say right now. African American men and women, Hispanic American American men and women have had this happen to them on camera for years, and you haven't seen a pushback. So it's only because Renee Good and Alex Preddy are white that you're even hearing about this. And that's a fact, because there was another woman in Minnesota who was shot 9 times, who survived, right? Was arrested after being shot. The lady with who they said she had a gun in her purse, an unloaded the little tiny gun. I forget her name. And they actually took the car. They said that she drove her car into another guy. Turns out he drove his car into her. They took his car, shipped it to Maine to hide it from the judge, and only because the judge eventually forced it, they dismissed the charges against that. Martinez, or maybe it might have been Chicago too, Tom. I'm sorry, it might be Chicago. You'll figure out the lady's name in a minute.
No, but I was actually saying it's actually in this year, in 2026, in 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
It's happened.
There's been eight people shot,
right?
By dealing with ICE or Border Patrol in ICE operations or whatever. It's just the last 2 were white.
It just happened to be that the last 2 were white, and then you saw that come. And by the way, let me say this. I'm going to take it to this just so you can think, because some of the folks in our chat are so stupid. You don't even realize how stupid you are. Here's what I'm going to tell you. The only real reason that this thing has become something that they push back on is because the NRA came out against what President Trump said about carrying guns to a protest. That is the only reason why that it shook them a little bit, is because one of the largest political organizations in the world, the National Rifle Association, kind of said, hey guys, knock this off. And let me tell you this. I can point out to you a case. The young man who was killed in Florida, who was carrying a gun, who happened to be an African-American kid, who was carrying legally, who was murdered by a police officer in the very same fashion. They didn't say anything about him, but they said something about Alex Preddy because he's white. Okay, so that's you can say what you want about how you view racism. And do I agree with you that racism is used too much? Yes, it is. It's used too much by liberal white people. That's who uses it. That's who uses it too much. But in this case, there is no doubt that the only reason the NRA made the statement was because this guy is as white as they come. A Minnesota military VA nurse was murdered. And we're saying that you could have predicted that. And in fact, we did on May 10th. Or May 9th, May 11th. If you go back to the May 11th episode of the This Week in Worcester podcast, you will see Tom and I predict this live after what happened on Eureka Street here in the city of Worcester. When escalated officials go into the public with weapons and they do not have the training to de-escalate a situation, and they themselves have escalated the situation. Why is it that those ICE officers Why did they have to walk down the middle of the street, Tom? In the Alex
Why they have to kidnap a kid?
Right. Why did they have 31?
Oh, I thought you meant here. Yeah.
No, I'm just talking about the Alex Preddy case. They said he shouldn't have been in the street with the cell phone. Why were all 31 of them in the street? Why weren't they on the sidewalk?
Well, I mean, even take it up on a level. The most the studies show the most undocumented people are in Texas and California. Why did the federal government send 3,000 federal agents into Minneapolis?
To escalate the situation. They wanted to escalate the situation.
Well, let's look at the facts. The governor of that state was on the opposing ticket to the president.
Yeah.
There's a House rep that represents many of the areas where the large population of Somalis live, who they've just branded as public enemy number one for no reason, should be deported even though she's a citizen and all this crap. So I mean, because it's who's leaders there. I mean, in California, there's Republican pockets, but I mean, that's also a much different state than Minneapolis. And in Texas, I mean, it doesn't matter what Texas does because it's going to vote for him. So
but I want to say this. I've heard this argument on the internet. They have many more arrests in Texas, but you don't see anybody doing that. Of course you don't, because the media in Texas is sycophantic for the president. And they would never release these videos. And you don't have independent media down there because you do not live in a free country, ladies and gentlemen, and you have not. And let me say this, it applies the same side to the blue states as it does to the red states. The media, the legacy flagship media that puts out most of this stuff, they shut you down if you don't stay in line. Like, they just do.
Well, I mean, in Texas, though, the gun culture in Texas is such that I'm sure they're not behaving like this in Texas.
I doubt
certainly toward people who are obviously citizens, because you won't be doing what you're doing very long.
Right. I'll also say that very, very quickly and very rapidly. By the way, predicted by multiple people, including myself, that don't tread on me. I rock a gun. I go to McDonald's wearing fatigues. They kowtowed to, gun-toting, mask-wearing military deployments in blue states in 15 seconds. They were okay with boots on the ground in the United States of America when it was against states that they weren't. Do you remember the Black Hawk helicopter thing in Texas with Obama? Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, there was, he was shipping military equipment through using the train lines, and they said that he was going to do some kind of military exercise in Texas, and there was a huge uprising, Ted Cruz, Tea Party, all that stuff. They were all upset about it, and they ended up shutting it down, or they didn't do it. It was a military exercise. I remember that clear as day, and it was a huge controversy on the Republican side when Obama did it. But when Trump does something similar, when they shut down California 5 and have the National Guard do a live fire exercise with attack helicopters against dummy houses because Gavin Newsom's a jerk. But by the way, I agree. Gavin Newsom's a jerk. I don't like him at all. I don't like that guy at all. I don't want that guy to be president in any way, shape, or form. He's, as far as I'm concerned, he's a neoliberal brain rot acolyte. Who hates the homeless, hates the poor, and wants to just get in charge. And so his corporate buddies can be it. I have no issues with that statement. I can say that and still say what President Trump did in that state is completely and utterly unconstitutional. Deploying National Guards, calling up the California National Guard and redeploying them. There is no modern version of this. In fact, until you have to go all the way back to when, Tom? The Watts riots in the 1960s, when the last time this happened. And what was that for? Does anybody remember why they activated the National Guard back then? What was it to do? Suppress Black people. So that's, I mean, again, dudes, guys, ladies and gentlemen, you do not live in a free country anymore. Home of the free, land of the brave, all that stuff that you sing when you in that on city council on Tuesdays. I pledge allegiance to the flag, all that nonsense. It doesn't mean jack squat. If they want to come to your city and overturn it, they will. In fact, our city might...
I mean, and look, that applies even locally. I pledge allegiance to the flag, except for the parts about checks and balances, separation of powers, the First Amendment, and the Equal Protection Clause.
Right, right. And by the way, our founding fathers never would have pledged allegiance to the flag. They never would have done that. That came out of the late 1890s. It was a post-Reconstructionist government thing that became a propaganda thing. Just so you know, true constitutionalists will say that not only that, a Christian putting your hand over your heart and pointing it
Yeah,
towards the flag.
exactly.
Let's go, dude. Like, we can get into all these things if you really wanted to. All the
It is
hypocrisy
amazing to me.
of fake Christo nationalism. You're not a real Christian. You don't know Jesus. You don't know Jesus at all. It's all fake. So I don't want to hear none of that, because you would never do that. You don't put a flag above God. No. It's nonsense. Nonsense. It's idolatry 101.
Yep.
And
Yes,
I'm
it
the
is.
wrong, by the way, for those of you who come from me in that area, I'm the wrong guy. Let's go. We could do this all day. We could do passage and verse. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. But that would make This Week in Worcester podcast a much different show. And Tom does not want to do that show. So
I
we're
do
not going to
wanna
do that show.
I don't have any desire to be quoting scripture, but I do find it amazing. Jehovah's Witnesses, who are often viewed as kind of an extremist brand of Christianity, and in some cases, maybe in some areas of belief, maybe that's a little bit true. I don't know. I don't know a lot about it. I do know though that it was Jehovah's Witnesses that had to go to the Supreme Court of the United States, I believe, to have the right for their children not to stand and pledge allegiance to the flag in school, because they looked at that as
not just so we had it happen in our own state. Mitt Romney. Remember, Mitt Romney came from Utah. He's of the Mormon faith, and one of the things that was a big controversy when he was running for Senate the first time against Bill Weld was that he didn't put his hand over his heart for the Pledge of Allegiance. This is like real, true blue Republican stuff. By the way, Pastor Joseph Rizzuti, you can't. This is. I know you're going to want to read this, right? You can't. This man is not like a left wing person. He's a very well respected pastor here in the city of Worcester.
He now in Auburn because they chased him out.
And yeah, he's in Auburn now, but he was in Worcester for a long time. I used to work at Iglesia Casa de Oracion on Canterbury Street in Worcester. I was in the leadership structure there, and Pastor Rizzuti is well known among multiple denominations as a very cooperative guy. His church would help organize events and things like that. This guy is a biblical dude. And so he's not the person that we're saying. And in this case, he's responding to what this conversation that we've had ongoing related to how police are treating. I can read it, Tom, if you want to read it.
I was just going to say, so the rest of it doesn't all fit on the screen, but you can live in a rough neighborhood and live a crime-free life. But when you deal with the blue, they don't treat you that way. Not saying they don't profile specific ethnicities, because we know they do.
Right. Now, so this is, again, and I'm not going to pigeonhole Pastor Rizzuti into one political camp or the other. I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is this is a man who's lived his life for Jesus. That's what his whole profession is that. And I would say that in the response to what happened at his church, you can see a human man, frustrated with how he's being approached by an authority figure, right? So I don't think in any capacity that this man has ever said that he didn't get frustrated in that moment. Of course he did. Of course he did. Because you had an escalating officer escalating him on purpose to try to get a rise out of him, to try to get him to react. And then once he did react, the officer used overwhelming force to apply it to this person who disrespected authority. The problem is that at the same time as that happened in the city of Worcester, the same culture that is currently at the apex of the federal authority has told you that I have my gun to make sure that the government can never do that. You can't take me down, right? The same thing. But they're okay with this. They're okay with a pastor being tased in his back in front of his children, and that's okay. And the city of Worcester is defending it. Now they're going to lose epically in this court case.
Yeah.
And I don't care if I taint the jury pool. If you vote against Pastor Rizzuti, you're an idiot or you're a plant. And that's there's no way not. The city's going to settle. In the settlement, or if this goes to trial, it's going to be a terrible, terrible day for the city of Worcester.
That's the
Terrible.
way it looks like it's going. Last I heard, but and just to be clear, that's Pastor Rizzuti's son, the
Oh, I'm
man
sorry,
who runs
that's
the church as his son.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he was also involved in and arrested in that situation.
Joe Jr. also another person who has been in the clergy for a long time, right? So he's been involved with leadership in churches as well. These are not folks that are this shows kind of maybe the power of our show, Tom, that folks are out that are not necessarily politically affiliated in a normal world are able to come together and look at a reasonable situation and say, hey, that shouldn't happen. Because what happened that day was 100% the officer's fault, and it was 100% escalated by the officer. And if you want to stand on the corner right now, Tom, if you want to stand on the corner across the street from City Hall and yell, you can. You should be allowed to do it. Yell all you want. Yell all you want. As long as you're not harming somebody, unless you're not impeding anybody else. But by the way, you know this new tactic that they have where someone stands on the sidewalk and then they send 40 officers to walk on that sidewalk. The Supreme Court has yet to weigh in, but interestingly enough, the Fifth Circuit, which is an ultra-conservative circuit, has ruled on this, that the police can't send 40 officers onto a sidewalk in a case that's coming out of Mississippi and say that person is impeding those 40 officers. Right? So there was a guy who was doing First Amendment checks. He was standing on the sidewalk and he was recording a police station. And so what they did was they got the entire police station out and they sent them onto that sidewalk, and then they arrested him for impeding the police. And the Fifth Circuit said, no, you can't do that. You can't make a new thing that says all the officers needed to be on the sidewalk at the same time. That's just the government creating a situation to create a case. But that's the tactic that you see being used in some of these immigration situations. They'll just send 25 people. So of course, one guy can't get out of the way of 25, and so then they have a reason to arrest you. They're creating the circumstances to then be able to arrest you. Just like what happened with Pastor Rizzuti, they created circumstances, and if there wasn't a body camera, how would Pastor Rizzuti ever recover from that publicly? The body camera is what saved his reputation, because the police was going to come out against him in every single way, and they did. And they did. And the city has basically affirmed the police statements at the time, the police union statements and the public stuff going into the newspaper and the leaks from the leadership of the unions, by never really helping back. Right. So, Pastor Rizzuti's name still is besmirched. And that's why I think in many, many ways he's going to win this lawsuit, because, again, he has every right to sue for defamation and just ruining his character. It's too bad. Everybody's allowed to have a bad day.
And people are allowed to have a bad day, but then when you have a whole infrastructure behind you that just doubles down on your bad day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, they don't, and as you said, I'm over blaming the police department.
It's not the police's fault. It's the culture of the city that leads to this. The city administration, again, and even some people that criticize us, like, again, we have people in our chat that just say stupid stuff, but we also have, there's, the Red Metro people, Seven Hills Political Exchange, and then, Worcester Politics over there. They love to say things, about us that say that our critique of the government somehow means that we hate Worcester. No. I don't believe in the Worcester city government as being perfect, and never have. I don't believe in the American government as perfect, and never have. I think that I love the people of Worcester. And the majority of the people of Worcester don't participate in the government. They don't. And
That's
so
everywhere.
those are the folks that I love. And why don't they participate, Tom? Because why would they? Why would they?
I mean, I agree with that, but I mean, that's also, if you compare like voter turnout to surrounding towns, it's no better.
No, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there should be a place, I guess, that's not a dictatorship, right? So obviously there's 100% voter turnout in Russia, which
Yeah, well,
might indicate something's going on, right? But there should be a place in the world where there is 70 or 80% turnout and you have real participatory, engagement among the population, and there's real pushback against rights and wrongs and things that are happening. But you just don't see that, and it makes people despondent and despair, and that sucks because our city it has beautiful, incredible artists, has unbelievable small businesses that have been here for decades, has brand new small businesses that are doing great things, has incredible writers and poets and all kinds of stuff that is going on, and that should be celebrated. But meanwhile, we're arguing over whether or not they fund the snow removal enough, traffic and parking, and what tax incentive the next corporation is going to get, versus celebrating the people. It comes down to the people, man. And so I love Worcester, the people, the ground, the buildings, the companies, the big giant things. Those I don't have to love them and still love Worcester. I can disagree with them. By saying I disagree with Polar Park, which has a bunch of problems, doesn't mean that I hate Worcester or even that I hate the Woo Sox. I love having a baseball team. I'm not against baseball. I love baseball, but they still screwed it up. That's objectively true, folks. They still screwed it up, and it's not producing the money they said it was going to produce because they also screwed up the development around it. That's their fault. This city council's majority is a philosophical direct connection to the majorities that voted for this, and we're just dealing with the repercussion. Doesn't mean that we hate Worcester. We love Worcester. So
yeah, and I mean, I have I have a problem with if there's a shooting in the city or whatever, and I don't mean to diminish it by saying whatever, but if specifically if there's a shooting, politicians have a lot to say, elected people have a lot to say.
yeah,
But when it's their own employees harming someone, even after the civil case is all disposed of and everything, and it's after a civil case ends, right, and all now those claims are settled forever. That's when you expect government would start digging in, try and get at the root of what happened, and try and put in systems or ordinances or whatever it might be to prevent it from happening again. And they just don't care to do that because it's not in their interest, their political interests. And that's just not public service.
I agree.
Represent. Even we don't have to make it about representation. Just when your employees do stuff, you should probably handle it.
Yeah.
But nope. It's only a few bad apples, and they refuse to do anything to deal with them.
Just a couple bad apples, just like one or two.
And they won't do anything about it.
Well, unless that bad apple falls out of favor, then it'll be swift and quick.
Yeah, I mean, but they won't deal with the underlying problem.
No, it doesn't change the problem. I'm just saying that Sean Tivnan got let go because he didn't have any support in the union anymore, so they got rid of him, and then that's realistically what happens. Those you see officers get let go and moved on from because the union says they're too much, they're hurting our brand, so we got to move on, move forward. I
don't think they'd be able to do that though. Well,
By the way,
so I don't know what happened there.
By the way, I understand that he watches the show, and so I would like to make an invitation to Mr. Tivnan. We would love to interview you at This Week in Worcester, and you can share with us your story and the background of the situation at the beer garden, but also just what happened to you as an officer going forward, the investigations, all the different stuff that happened internally, and even the result at the end. Tom and I would have you on the show live, allow you to participate and talk out loud, and we would happily provide you with questions and present it exactly as you say it in response to the questions in the newspaper. I understand that you've been watching the show for a few weeks now, so reach out, text us, call us. I'm sure you can get a hold of us in some way, shape, or form. We will be the only place in the city of Worcester that provides you with a fair hearing.
Yeah, and if you didn't want to appear live, we can talk to you offline and deal with it that way. Yeah. More than happy to meet with you, or mostly more than happy to meet with just about anybody.
Yeah, even
talk
if
with just about anybody.
just because we disagree with someone doesn't mean that I won't have a conversation. You know,
Yeah, no, of course.
and even folks that I guess there's one person whose name I'm not allowed to say right now because of ongoing stuff. But I meet with that person. In fact, I approached that person and asked them for quotes more than one time. I'm not afraid. I will ask and talk to anybody under any circumstances. I fear nothing. And so let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's go live on camera. Let's negotiate these situations. If you're so upset about them, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it on camera. Let's do it live. The city of Worcester would love that, right? We'll get some ratings that day, Tom.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a question of we don't officially know what the situation is with that person's separation from employment with the city.
That's right.
But it is very weird that a police officer disappears off the rolls and there's no associated discipline with it.
Yeah, and so we would love to have that conversation, see how that came about. What the situation was as it is. Some city administration staff, like to leak and besmirch people after you leave, and so there's been several separations of employees from the city, all of whom have told me that they watched the show, and Tom and I are happy to have conversations with you and talk to you about it, and we will be fair. I mean, to be honest with you, there's a couple people I've talked to, and it might be a little bit closer and maybe farther away for them to do an interview with us or be a part of a show with me and Tom. But I will say this, that they consistently express this concern that there's only one side of the story being put out there.
Yep.
Come on our show and we'll put on your side. Let people talk to you. To be honest with you, most of the time, if you just come on and face the music and just say sorry or whatever, it almost always leads to change. Almost always. Not always, but it usually leads to change. And it's at least an opportunity to have healing. And that's realistically all the root of all these complaints that continue to exist in the city of Worcester. The city never, ever, ever admits that it's wrong. You should play that clip. You should play that clip again from Tony Economou, right? Just play his clip of how he felt they responded to the storm. You did a great job.
Yep. Just like the city settles these lawsuits, nobody ever does any digging into what happened, and the only thing you can get from the administration is the city accepted no responsibility in the settlement.
Never wrong, never. And we have a commenter who loves to comment that settling in a lawsuit doesn't mean that you're wrong. But
I mean, when there's video of the thing happening, but then it's some conspiracy theory about AI.
And that's because I'm convinced, by the way, if all of them got themselves a shoulder owl, a distinguished, gentle owl like this, that could be their buddy, they'd probably be better people.
And I just want to say to folks who, should you choose to reach out, if you don't, if this isn't the format for you, you don't want to do something live, happy to talk to you,
Yeah.
Happy
we'll do it at all kinds of
places. Shoulder owls aside, it's time for John's favorite part of the show.
That is so. Just so you guys know that I'm fair. Tom just did disinformation again, 101. Fake news from Tom Marino, because this is not just any section of the show. This is Tom's favorite things. By the way, a section of the show that is open for sponsorship. If you were to sponsor the show, we would put your logo of your business right here in this area here, and it would flash or something like that, or it would go across the screen, or it would like pop into another window somewhere, and it would be brought to you by. Oh, I almost froze there for a second. Brought to you by whichever local business. And I will say this, Tom, since our last episode, a company has approached me about potentially sponsoring Tom's favorite things, which is exciting. Yes, that's exciting. So we are having a conversation about that. We'll see how it is. Get an idea of what that is. Wouldn't that be cool to have the This Week in Worcester podcast have a sponsor for the #1 rated section of the show, which is Tom's favorite things. Last week we did Snow, which apparently was a repeat, and I was told not to repeat. What was I told not to repeat? I was told not to repeat something else. But tomorrow is Groundhog Day, Tom. February 2nd, Puxatawny Phil. And if I had any like real thought about my life, and I don't know when I'm going to get there, but not this year. But I am going to Puxatawny, Pennsylvania at some point, and I'm going to be there on February 2nd to meet that groundhog. No doubt, absolutely going to meet that groundhog. 100%. And I'm gonna try. I'm trying to stay in that same bed and breakfast that Bill Murray stayed in, and this is leading me to my question for you this weekend. So, Tom Marino, what's your favorite Bill Murray movie?
Ooh. You go first.
All right. So, I don't want to be too cliche, and it would have been easy to pick Groundhog Day because it is a great movie. It is a great movie. And it would be easy to pick Ghostbusters, also a great movie. But as I get older, I kind of do enjoy movies where I can sit back and laugh and be challenged in my laughter, with like just a constant giggle. They just don't make comedies quite the same way they used to when we were younger, and or in the 80s and stuff like that. So it came down to three movies altogether, right? So that I were in my top three. That was Groundhog Day, and then Stripes, and then Lost in Translation. I think Lost in Translation is a classic film, but it's not really that funny. It's a very serious film, and but it comes down to my favorite Bill Murray movie of all time is Stripes. Stripes might be might be one of the funniest movies of all time. I've been thinking about doing an all comedy list because I did the top 100 movies, and if I did an all comedy list, I would reset the guidelines to do it. Like I would like come up with new rules for the top 20. But Stripes might officially be a top 10 funniest movie of all time, and so that would be my favorite. That's my favorite comedy. My favorite serious movie is probably Lost in Translation.
I was actually going to go Stripes too, but I can easily divert to Caddyshack.
Caddyshack is great. Caddyshack is great. He's only in it for a small time though. It's just
but his character's fantastic.
Yeah, he steals the movie.
He does.
He steals the movie. Yeah, him and a very fake gopher, not as cool as my shoulder owl, but not far off.
And there's a movie I can't think of that I feel like was good, and I don't remember.
There's another great one. I think Bill Murray is like underappreciated too,
Sure.
for whatever reason. And which is weird because at one point he was like a huge star, and then kind of not, But another great movie by him is Saint Vincent. If you ever seen Saint Vincent, another tremendous film about basically an old drunk and his friendship with a single mom and his kid, and her kid, and just a great movie. Scrooged is great. Another great film. And then Groundhog Day is awesome. The Last Gasp of Andy McDowell. What About Bob? Another great one.
Yep.
Another great film. Watching Richard Dreyfuss. By the way, a great story about What About Bob is that intentionally they didn't tell Dreyfuss he wasn't allowed to read Bill Murray's lines. So all of the reactions you see from Dreyfuss were like takes, and then Murray just was allowed to just ad-lib the movie, right? So like there's other versions of takes where he says other things that are just wild stuff. But it's great to have Richard Dreyfuss, who, by the way, in the 70s, in the early 80s, was like a top 10, top 15 actor at one point in his career. But in the twilight, get to do that with Bill Murray is great. What About Bob? It's a great movie, great flick.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. All right, folks.
That
Council
the next
on
best part of
Tuesday.
our show.
Yeah. So
The ending.
yeah, the ending. This is the actual best part. This is the part that everybody enjoys. So council meeting on Tuesday. What is committee meetings this week? Hold on, scrolling. Public health on Monday, education on Monday, and on Tuesday at 5:00, municipal ops. That's February 10th. That's next week. And then Tuesday, February 17th, economic development, 5:30 on a Tuesday. I don't think the council meets next week though, so that's less egregious than municipal ops. But yeah, the stacking of meetings on Tuesday is really infuriating.
Yeah, it is.
But anyway, we'll how many or termination this is I didn't see this until just now. This is a much longer conversation, but the reality is not many, very few, very few.
True that. That's a whole show right there. Joe.
Oh yeah. But anyway, everybody have an amazing week. Kill it, whatever you're doing. We will be here. We will not be here next Sunday because nobody is going to watch.
No, but in 2 Sundays, hold on, wait. Today's the 1st, the 8th, the 15th. Okay, so on the 15th, tune into the This Week in Worcester podcast because we will be giving away on that show the 2 VIP tickets to the Dead of Winter Horror Festival.
Nice.
Live on the show. And there might be another contest we do on This Week in Worcester itself. I need to work that out with Tom to give away some tickets. But if you are thinking about going to the Dead of Winter Horror Film Festival, I can tell you right now, 50 movies this year. 50 movies, all made in New England. And answering Tom's question, there will be a section of those films that are just the goriest, bloodiest, scariest, jump out of your seat movies you'll ever see in your life. So come check those out at the DCU Center, February 21st and 22nd. And I'm telling you this, and I know I say this every year, and people don't listen to me, and then they're mad when they get there. We went from Mechanics Hall to the DCU Center. There is going to be lines. I cannot keep you out of line unless you buy your passes in advance. If you buy your passes in advance and you show up, you will just go to the registration desk, say, my name is such and such, and whatever email you use to pay. And you will pick up your passes and you will go into the event and have the time of your life, experiencing all kinds of fun, horror-related stuff. Renewal by Anderson has become a vendor, and they're going to do some kind of spooky window treatments. That's kind of cool.
That is cool.
It is pretty cool. So we're excited about that. We have a bunch of other sponsors we're going to be announcing. Kid Luco Roofing already sponsored it. Obviously DCU, and then the Breeze Sweet Treats. But there's more sponsors and more businesses that are getting involved. If you want to get involved, reach out to me, or you can just go right on the website and do it, deadofwinterentertainment.com. But get your tickets now, please. I don't want to hear you complaining to me, John, why am I waiting in this line? Because it's the DCU Center, dude. I can't stop the crowd from coming to the DCU Center. I can't. There's nothing I can do. So just please, I beg of you, get your tickets now, please.
I don't think it would be in interest to stop people from coming either.
I can't stop people from coming, but there is still a limit to how many people can come into the convention center side of the building. So there's a real chance of a sellout, and there's nothing I can do. If it's sold out, it's sold out. You ain't getting in because it's not my call. It's DCU's call because they have a guy with a clicker that goes, and then if it gets to that number, they go, "Oh, no more," and then then you're mad at me.
Then you're mad at me.
Then you're mad at me, and then you're like, how come so and so's in there? Well, they got their tickets in advance, so that's how. All right.
All right, so we will not be here next week because it is Super Bowl and no one is going to watch us. And I don't blame them.
We did run a program last year.
Yeah, but the Patriots weren't in it.
That's true.
So I don't want to talk to it. I mean, I can call you on the phone if we want to talk.
You don't want to do a halftime special with me?
Well, maybe. We'll talk about that. Maybe. We have to come up with it. Have to be a compelling reason. But yeah, maybe I take that back. Maybe we'll do something. I'll put out an announcement, obviously, what we're doing. So that is it for this week. Thank you all for your participation and questions and comments. We will try to screw it up less next week. Have a great week. Deuces.
See you, everybody. Bye. The distinguished